Oh, nice.
Hey, I just gotta describe the place that we're sitting right now.
We've taken it on the road, folks.
This is the backyard abode.
This has a name.
Oh, you got a name for it?
Oh, this is
What's the name?
This is the Nook.
The Nook.
Yeah.
That could be a cool podcast.
It's the Nook. When I bought this house, and it was what, we've been here 3-4 years now. So it's a 2-story home that has the front yard is higher than the backyard.
Yep.
So when you walk in the front door, you're walking into the second level, and if the house is built into the side of a hill, kind of.
Most people call it a split level, Ryan.
Thank you.
But you explain it really well.
Yeah. So if you go downstairs while you're in the house and come out the back door, you're on the out of the basement.
You're in the Nook.
Because there's a deck that was built on the second story, like kind of vibe, that comes off the kitchen. And underneath that space is this really cool under my deck space that the people who lived here before me put a ceiling in. Yeah. And so when it rains on the deck, the ceiling catches all that rain and it goes to a gutter system, and it's like a room. It's just not screened in.
Do you ever turn on these fans? There's 2 fans.
Yes.
With old school, like,
big old fat
leaf looking things?
Yeah, I feel like we're in Magnolia down in the south. We got big fans.
Normally you have a smoker.
I do. Well, my smoker's all upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
It's on the deck.
I'm just saying, normally there would be some smoke rolling. Smell
That's
good
true.
for the Nook. So we're outside.
We are.
It's a
you may
little
hear
hot.
a bird.
Yeah, it's a little hot.
Man, I don't know. It's been a minute since we've been on the podcast. Apologies, constant listener.
No, we're not apologizing. There are things that happen in life, and we normally take a break in the summer.
Fair enough.
I would say July, end of June, it's our break time. We're jumping back into it.
I was going to comment on the heat. Yeah. You were talking about that. Since we last have been on, the heat is oppressive. It is. It has shown it's bared its fangs. And today, while hot is at least a tolerable day, and we're in the shade, and it feels comfy.
Yeah,
I mentioned
the fans because I'm.
You want the fans on?
No. Well, here's why I'm hot. We were driving around in the Jeep. Yeah. There's no top, and
a lot of air
pretty
circulation.
Nice.
Yeah.
We went to. I'm not going to name the place.
Because I almost feel like
beef.
we need to warn the people. We did not have good beef.
How about this?
How about that?
Both. So the whole thing when you turn your mid-40s, you go either woodworking or smoking.
Or the Roman Empire.
Or the Roman Empire. We went. I do like the Roman Empire. However, I put more emphasis on smoking probably now.
We are meat guys.
We like smoking. So we're like, hey, let's make a plan. Let's go to this place. Let's say on Bardstown Road and where Gene Snyder intersect.
Okay. You may as well say it. I don't
think we need to say it out loud, fair. But there's a place.
We went to experiment. We went to try a new barbecue joint.
If you were to look on the map and you just put in boot, you'll find it. So the first telltale sign that this was not going to be a good barbecue place was I asked the hostess a question. Remember the question?
I do.
I said, if I get the brisket, can I specifically get meat off the point?
You did. And
do you remember how she responded?
I do, but to be fair, and this is before we tried anything.
I don't think there's an explanation. I think it's if
you
work at a barbecue.
Girl.
I get it.
I just wanted to give her some benefit of
the doubt.
That's
part of training. I think if you work at a real barbecue place, that's part of your training.
Yeah. Okay.
People are going to come in here asking for the flat or point. You got to know the difference.
She did not.
I think that's a typical thing. She said the and I said typically there's a flat. It's not as much fat, and then there's a point. It's fatty meat. And she says, "Yeah, we chop it." I said, "Okay."
You gonna get some of that stuff?
So I got a pound of brisket.
That was
I said chopped.
A bold move.
Chopped. Got a couple sides. We'll talk about the sides later. You want to tell me you ordered?
I ordered just as basic as you get at a barbecue place. Yeah. I just got their pulled easy. Easy.
That's easy.
As easy as
you really can't mess that up.
You should not be able to.
I mean,
and call yourself a respectable barbecue place.
Well, here's how I learned. You put a pulled pork in the smoker, you ain't gonna mess that thing up. You can cook it forever, and it ain't gonna mess up.
Walk away for 12 hours, and then come back and be like, "Hey, I was smoking something."
Yeah. Fast forward about 30 seconds, we got the food. The first moment I opened up, well, first the brisket came in a foil pan with a plastic top that was smoked. That was like kind of like humid.
Steamy.
I said, man, they heated it up. Just in my gut.
Instantly,
it's just been heated up. So we open up the lid.
This thing's been in the microwave.
The only way I can describe the meat, the brisket that I saw, was like a cold cut, sliced, and then like cut with scissors into little bitty squares, really flat squares.
Yeah.
Meat.
I mean, it wasn't this thin, but it's Arby's.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like on a deli slicer. They had just run it through there, and then they had just taken a knife and run it down the middle of that.
You couldn't taste the bark. You couldn't see a smoke ring. It was obvious it was heated up from a day or two ago, right? It wasn't like a fresh. Most barbecue places you walk in, they sell out like by 2:00. This one, they have meat until the night, right?
Yeah.
They're not gonna get rid of. They're not gonna sell out of meat. Like
it's all underneath a heat lamp in the back.
Yeah. How would you describe your pulled pork?
It was the same. It was very clear that they didn't use any kind of rub that I was detecting. And it may have, but I didn't. It had been soaking in some kind of liquid.
I got one word that I saw. Well, 2 words. Pale wet.
Yeah, it was wet for sure, but not in that good, fat is flavor kind of way. It was just sitting in a tub of, some kind of liquid, and it was white, I don't know. I mean, it's pork, so you're like, well, that kind of makes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And, it really.
Pulled pork, barbecue pulled pork is not white. It's grayish, right?
So it was. I asked for it without sauce because I'm very purist in that sense. Your pulled pork ought to be able to stand on its own. If you have to add sauce, you're covering something up.
Yeah.
So, and I don't mind sauce. I'm not an anti-sauce guy, but I want to be able to put it on after. Yeah. So I asked for it on the side. Yeah. The sauce itself was not good.
Ooh, let's talk about the sauce. Look, this is a long intro. This is going to be one of the longest intros we've ever done because we're back. And we were talking about, like, how do you rate barbecue chains? If we were to start doing that, like, for professional, people start paying us to go check out some barbecue joints.
Sponsors solicited.
Yeah. The sauce, though, it's Skyline chili.
Yeah,
it
had a cinnamon back.
You said, hey, does this taste cinnamony? And I tasted it, and I was like, man, that's all you taste is cinnamon and wet. And it's just like...
It was very odd.
It's so weird. Like, barbecue should be... I should be happy right now that we had barbecue.
Me too. And I'm not trying to say there needs to be a standard. Like, I don't want it all to be the same. I like being creative. I like coming up with your flair, and even barbecue sauces that are your original. I'm okay with all that.
Well, I like the regional stuff. Like, you have Texas barbecue, you have South Carolina barbecue, you have Kansas City barbecue.
There's some standards that you have to abide by.
I think Kentucky barbecue is not a thing, even though they say it's mutton. I don't think Kentucky has a good reputation of being a barbecue place, right? Kentucky's bluegrass, horses, all that kind of stuff. We don't eat horse here.
Hot browns.
Right,
we don't eat horses.
But I think you need to have some kind of self-pride in what you cook and what you present. I did not feel like this place was a true to barbecue place.
Yeah.
I think it was a restaurant that's maybe family-owned, and that's just what they do, and people around there are used to it.
Yeah.
I was going into it expecting something better.
Yeah.
A good brisket, bark, fatty, man. And it was anything... I would give it a 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10 is what we landed on.
Yeah.
And so to give that into some context, we tried to say, this was one of our first. That's going to become a thing. But 5 or higher, and if my buddies are like, hey, man, let's go to this place, I'd give it another, okay, maybe.
Ooh,
anything below...
You'd go back?
No.
Oh.
I'm just letting people know my ranking system.
Yeah, no, I'm
5
not...
or below, and somebody's like, let's go here.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I'm speaking against it. No, I don't want to go back to that place, and I would not choose this place again.
The only thing I liked about it was the apple cobbler. I regret spending the amount of money I spent there.
Well, you bought a pound.
So here, let's just drop some names of good places. When I go to Mission Barbecue or City Barbecue, I can down a pound of chopped brisket.
You walk in... $2, you walk out $2.01.
Just that fatty brisket from the point, chopped. It's so good. I don't even need sauce. It's just, it's going to be good seasoning and it's going to be well done. It's cooked there. You can smell it when you walk, and it's good stuff. This place, when we walked in, yes, I smelled wood, but it's almost like you walk into
Their tables.
Sonny's. You ever been to Sonny's barbecue?
Yes.
In Frankfurt?
Yes.
That's what it smells like. That wood, that sawdusty wood burnt kind of stuff. And even I would put Sonny's over this place. I would put McDonald's over this place. Yeah. It's not like I would take the McRib over what I ate today.
It was disappointing.
Yeah. Welcome to the show.
You're listening to a local church podcast hosted by my dad, Pastor Ryan Markham. Be sure to leave a review and share this resource. Love God, love people, make disciples.
We're back.
Yeah, we are. What kind of intro was that?
10-minute long. That's the longest intro.
By far.
I think it had to be said though.
It did. It was a public service.
I think so. I think we've saved the life of probably hundreds,
or at least
not
tens.
Yeah. Anyway, so just to get everybody caught up, we're walking through a Concise Theology. This is a podcast about faith, theology, the church, and any other topic we want to talk about. It just kind of pops up. But this is kind of our foundational book that we've been walking through for probably a year.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
And that's okay. I mean, we, in the beginning when we started down this road, we were talking to folks about, hey, go grab your own copy. They're not expensive and read along with us. But the essence of the book is, it's not a narrative. Although it does kind of start with some pretty foundational, fundamental things and then builds on them.
Yeah.
I think, we talked about truth in the very beginning, like stuff you got to be able to, establish as you build your theology and your faith. We're up to topic 28, but these are the kinds of things that you can read and then, chew on for a week and, think about. And so I don't think it's a big deal that we're only in chapter 28, kind of thing. This week, humanness. Yes? Yeah.
So you talked about systematic theology. This is concise theology, right? This is bite-sized theology, right? Concise or systematic theology has layers upon layers upon layers, and you're building upon those things as you go through the topics. Like you said, this one you can jump in and out of, I think,
right,
in different topics. We have a systematic theology group that meets, breakfast in theology is what I call it. We're walking through R.C. Sproul's Foundations Systematic Theology, which we're in like fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth.
Well, it's in its Genesis.
Yeah. Ooh, nice.
Thanks.
Saw a Genesis car on the road today. Don't know what that is. Anyway, humanness.
Today's scriptures. A lot of this chapter comes from Genesis.
Yeah. Topic 28. Humanness. God made human beings in His image. The verse that he uses at the outset of this chapter. This topic, Genesis 1:27. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them.
Yeah.
From this one verse, you can do a whole lot.
You can. In fact, I think the next two chapters come from this verse.
Yeah, I think.
Or two thoughts or whatever chapter.
Let's just talk about it. Well, I mean.
So this.
Like the barbecue. Well, just wait. Like the barbecue, we have to do a disclaimer. We like barbecue. If you're going to say your barbecue place, it better be barbecue, right?
Fair. True.
God created humans, both male and female. If you do not like that, the problem is not with God. It is with your understanding of how God created both male and female. I'll just drop it. I'll leave it at that.
And that's a little teaser. I mean, that is the next podcast. It is called Humanity, and HumanKind. Is what J.I. Packer talks about, and from Genesis 1:27, he zeroes in on the part that is male and female. Yeah. He created them, and so we'll dive into that next time we pod.
That's a one way to silence the pastor, right? I like it. You did good.
We're going to talk about it next week, buddy. No, that's not what I meant.
I want to bring it. I do want to bring it to the attention though. Like, there's a lot of things that we see in Scripture. Like, I don't know if I like that, right? And that's okay. However, the problem is never with Scripture. It's with my understanding of Scripture, maybe where I'm at in my faith walk, or even if I believe or not. The issue is me, and I've got to kind of work that out, with God through the Scriptures, things like that. So that's just something to come out. But image of God.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just messing with you.
I know, but you're right, and there are truths, and we established this, months ago. Maybe you established it in your own faith walk, listener. When you gave up your human nature, your desire to control, your desire to be in charge, and relented that idea to a greater truth, to a greater God, and His truth is.
I wouldn't say greater truth. I would say truth.
Fair.
Right?
You're right. Yes.
We see in Romans that there are many who have been given over to their sinful desires because they have suppressed the truth. Right.
Yep.
I think what we see in our world today, not just in gender issues, but just humanity as a whole, many have turned away from the truth for false truth or false, you could say idols or demons, whatever it is. They've turned away from the truth that's found, from God. God is truth, right?
Comfortability.
Yeah. I think when we get to the point, and next week, again, it's going to be the same thing. That humanism, that the humanist part of it, is we want to do our own thing, right? And we often suppress the truth a lot. Like, God's not really in control. I'm making my own choices. I picked my own toothpaste today, right? Yeah. Whatever. But let's get into the image of God.
Okay, yeah.
I've got us off topic. I apologize.
No, don't.
When we say image of God, before we get into the chapter, what's the first thing that pops into your brain? Or let's say the average person that hears that, what would they be thinking?
We talked about this before we even started the pod. My first thought when I hear image has to do with visual.
Like a mirror.
Has to do a mirror.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I think there's this underlying, for me, like I was today years old when I started thinking that's not what that's not what he's talking about. It's not that, God looks like the guy from, the movie, or, that he's got 2 arms and 2 legs even. Yeah. I think of when I'm made in God's image, okay, God must look like a human being.
Yeah. But we have to remember, Jesus says to the woman at the well, John chapter 4, God is spirit.
Right.
Therefore, we worship in spirit, right?
So,
he is to be worshiped in spirit.
So having established that, we're not talking about when in here in Genesis, God created man in His own image. We're not talking about the looks.
Yeah. The language that's used here, in His image, is imago Dei. It is an immaterial image, spirit type image. We reflect God's image in our compassion, in our rationale, in our ethics, in our morality, things like that.
Yep.
Based on what we see as the attributes of God, we bear His image in that way. Right?
Yes.
I think J.I. Packer, I don't know that he does a good job explaining that part.
I don't.
But he does mention several things that we were going to talk about.
He does. Oh, sorry about that loud noise. He doesn't talk about the idea of the visual image that I think most people would go to automatically. Yeah. He just kind of jumps over that and assumes that we're all as smart as he is.
We're all really smart.
And goes straight to the idea of the image God. How then, if we are made in God's image and we're not talking about the visual part of it, what are we talking about?
He does,
and Packer does a great job with that part.
He opens up with, no other creature created is made in the image of God. It gives dignity, right, to humanness or to life in general. That's why many Christians are pro-life, right? There's dignity, there's value in life. That's not the topic we're going to talk about today, but there's a uniqueness to humanity, right? We are the pinnacle of creation. Not that should make us prideful, but that should make us understand, like, there is something to be said about every human being is created in the image of God.
And I like how you said there's a special dignity that just inherently comes with that.
Yeah, and so, like, when especially now, we're ramping up into political season, right? Mm-hmm. We feel like we're battling against the other side, right? Whatever political party you're on, or if you're in the middle, you're like, I don't care. You feel like there's just this battle between 2 different types of people. They're the enemy, we're not, that kind of thing. And everybody has that tendency to do in political season. But if we look at people as created in the image of God, there's dignity and worth, value in one another.
Yep.
That should drive our compassion for one another, right? It should drive our love for one another, right? That kind of thing. But we miss this point.
That is a great point, and Packer doesn't draw that out the way you just did. That's a really you ought to be a pastor, man. That's a really, like, you can take one little thing there and draw a lot out from it, and that's a well-made point, I think.
Unfortunately, it's not just political, right?
Well, that's true.
It's in just about anything.
That's right.
There's our side and their side, right? And there shouldn't be.
And I mean, don't even go our side, their side, and talk about terms of, the policies I align with. You can talk about just differences in the way people behave, or disabilities comes to mind real quickly for me. I mean, obviously, everybody knows I'm in the school system, and kids with disabilities and other kids, because of their human nature, don't think that person's made in the image of God, think that person is different from me, thus beneath me. Yeah. And that's a disease that runs rampant in humankind.
I think it's good to draw that out.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm born without an arm or a leg, or I'm born blind, or I'm born deaf. Does that mean I'm not created in the image of God? No, absolutely not.
Right.
You can still reflect God's compassion, God's rationale, God's creativity, right? You can still reflect the image of God.
I think Jesus modeled that when he was, obviously, you can just go to story after story where he went to the sick, where he went to the lame, and healed. And, that is an allegory, of course, for our sinful nature to come to him for healing, but the way he had compassion, regardless of the state of their humanity,
I think
is
Jesus,
a lesson for everybody.
Man, that's another. I think Jesus, being God in the flesh, looked past that, whatever that is, the blindness, the lameness.
And next week, when we talk about,
he did not look past the sin.
Right. That's true.
We often think of Jesus as like, oh, he just loves the sinner. Sure, for their reflectiveness of the image of God, he addressed the sin in each situation, in each case.
And while next week we are going to talk about the male and female business, there is also a discussion about the fact that when God created us, he created us with a spiritual side, our soul, if you will, which is distinct and separate from our human body, which is fallible, which dies, which, however, which is perfect.
It ages.
Look at us, just goes round and round. Yeah. Look at what happens. It didn't always.
Yeah.
The human body didn't always, and that's one piece that Packer pulls out.
Yeah, so Adam and Eve were created perfect. They were created good, right? Without sin, without deformity, right? And they were going to live forever, right, with God in a perfect relationship. And then Satan, like the suppressing of the truth, says, did God really say? And so we look at Scripture and say, what did God say? And how do we apply it? And so Packer jumps into this. I don't think there's anything I want to talk. We've already kind of mentioned some of that stuff at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I want to jump into that second paragraph on the next page.
There's 5 points that Packer says, if we're made in God's image, then when God created Adam at creation, that God's image consisted of 5 things.
Yeah, let's do one. I'll do one. You do one. I'll do one. You do one.
Love it.
Number 1, in man's being a living creature or spirit, that is, a personal, self-conscious, godlike creature with a godlike capacity for knowledge, thought, and action.
Wait, did you just say God's creation was godlike?
So in humanity, yes, in the fact that, and he outlines it in the fact that we are personal. God is a personal being. He's a personal God. Self-conscious. God is self-conscious. We are self-conscious. Often, I guess, maybe around the puberty stage, people are starting to be like, what would happen if I die? Would people just keep going, right? Would life keep moving on? What if I do this? What if I do, like, we're self-conscious of things, especially around middle school. Like, I'm now self-conscious about what I wear and how I talk, things like that. And action, right? God is a God who does. Yep. He does his will. We are people who either do God's will or do our own thing, right? We still do that.
So I think it's worthwhile to say that while Packer uses the word godlike, it does not imply that God created gods.
Yeah, we are not Mormons, right?
Right.
Let's just talk about that for a second, because I've been talking about that in my family. Mormons would consider themselves a denomination of Christianity. Most Christian theologians, professors, pastors would put Mormons in the cult category for the sense of that it twists Scripture, it has its own Scriptures, but also that it would say you can become a god of your own planet.
Right.
If you do all the good things you need to do to make it, right? That kind of thing. That's not what Packer's not saying you are now demigod, right?
Right.
You are little gods. He's saying you are godlike in the sense that you are, like he says, personal, self-conscious, thought, action, knowledge.
Yeah.
All right, that kind of thing. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is in the middle of the garden.
Yep.
And so, yeah. Anything else for number one?
No, and the second component that made us that man was created in God's image, and what the second piece of that means is that in man, when he created us in his image, he created us to be morally upright. So when I read that for the first time, I was like, well, wait a minute.
We're fallen.
We are fallen, and there's not one of us are without sin. None of us are. But Adam and Eve were. Yeah. They were created perfectly in God's image, which meant the attribute of God's image that they were created in meant that they had no sin. They were morally upright. And that's what makes Genesis chapter 3 such a huge deal for the remainder of existence.
Yeah.
Because we were separated from God. We lost our moral uprightness in the fall. But when God made us in his image, it wasn't originally designed for moral uprightness.
No, that's why you see most of the New Testament writings, this is for your godliness, right? God has given you all things for godliness. Pastors, teachers, evangelists, all those things are given so that the man of God may be equipped for every good work. It's godliness, right? We have the ability to be morally upright, not in the sense that we will never sin again, but that we will sin less the more we become like Jesus, right? Or more in the image of Jesus.
And so this is one of those those ideas that, while it's interesting that Adam and Eve were created morally upright because they were made in God's image, it's not 2 chapters after that was decided in Genesis chapter 1, or after that was declared in Genesis 1, the fall happened. So then the natural question, if for somebody who doesn't understand what comes after Genesis 3 is, well, then we are separated from this God who created us in his image. We are no longer in his image. What do we do? And the remainder of the scripture teaches us that we are being restored to that, exactly what you described, to that godly image by sanctification, which is becoming more like Christ because of the work that Christ did on the cross.
It's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. God Question says this. The good news is that when God redeems an individual, same thing you said, he begins to restore the original image of God, creating a new self. We see that in Romans. When you're baptized with Christ, when you die like Christ, you're raised with him into a new way of living, right? You're a new life that he's given you, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. That redemption is only available by God's grace through faith in Jesus.
There you go.
Right? And so if I want to be truly, I guess, conformed in the image of Christ, or conformed to this new life, it's faith in Christ. That's where it begins, your salvation. And the second is your sanctification, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's number 2. Number 3, God's image in man at creation involves in man's environmental dominion. Usually and reasonably, it is added, and then we'll go into
the fourth one. Yeah.
But the environmental dominion, a lot of people have a problem with this. In the garden narrative, man is placed over creation.
Yes.
Rule it, steward it, right? Enjoy it. PETA, right?
Okay.
Does not like that, right?
Yeah.
Don't kill the fish. Don't kill the deer. Don't all those things. But in reality, God has made us dominion over creation itself. Now, not to abuse it, right? But to steward it, to care for it, to tend to it, just as God cares and tends for our life.
And it's worthy of note in this part that when God created man in his image, he tasked man to do things, specifically go forth and procreate, go forth
make
and
babies, man.
Go and do this thing and be his representatives on earth.
Yeah.
So as his representatives, it was, you are made in my image with these qualities. You are my representative here on earth. You have dominion over the earth.
Yeah.
And that's important to note. It wasn't just like God said, well, I mean, it was just like God said, you're in charge of the everything that I'm putting on earth.
Care
you're
for
over it. Yeah.
However, I think at the fall, there's some issues with that, right?
Yes.
Now it's toilsome to care for the earth, right?
Correct.
It's toilsome for childbearing, things like that. It wasn't meant to be that way, but it turned out to be that way once we said, you know what? There's another way, and I want to go this way, right? I think that's when we jacked it all up.
Yeah.
Humans.
All right, so as I said in point number 2, where when we were made in God's image, we were made morally upright.
I'm going to go back. Sorry.
Okay.
I want to unpack a little bit more with the environmental thing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Why is that a part of God's image, environmental dominion? It's rhetorical, but I want to unpack it a little bit based just on my limited understanding. God cares and tends constantly for the things that are going on around us, right? It is for our good and for His glory. It may not feel good when my loved one dies, right?
Right.
Or I go through cancer, or I battle this or battle that. Doesn't mean God's not caring and tending to my life or to the things that are going on around me. We're in the image of God. When we begin to tend and care for things, earth, dominion over the earth, we're reflecting what God is doing in our lives for humanity's sake, right? Things like that. I just want to unpack that because I think that goes a level deeper with that. I don't want to just be surface with that.
I don't, and I think that there is when God tasked man, you're made in my image, therefore you're my representative on earth. Thus you have environmental dominion. I feel like there's a responsibility, like
stewardship.
That's the perfect word. It's not that you are master, but it is use these things for my glory. Stewardship is right. Yeah.
Because He's doing the same. Like,
yes.
If we look at these in the, I guess the underlining factor, the foundation that He is doing these things as well. I'm created in His image, right?
Thus, it
would be important that we would note that.
Yep.
He's caring, and He's not like setting a clock and walking away. He's still tending and caring for everything that I see, even things I don't see, right? He's still doing that. Sorry, number 4.
So I think number 1, which is we have the ability to be self-aware, we have the capacity for knowledge, we have those characteristics.
Yeah.
And then 3, which you just described was man's environmental dominion, are still alive and real and are part of our being made in the image of God. I think
it's interesting. Number 1 is spirit.
Yes.
Number 3 is physical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think 2, 4, and 5, and we're going to get to these 4 and 5, are pieces that were in the original design that when sin entered, they fell apart.
Yeah.
So 2 was we were morally upright. When sin entered, we became not morally upright. 4 is immortality.
Yeah.
And that's so.
This is where you'd pause.
Yeah, there's a big pause there. Wait, what? There was no death.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, there was no death. There was immortality, and we no longer experience this. And you pulled up a scripture from the flood era, where there was man's life will be cut short, and all that. And we know that after the fall, God said, your time
your days
on
are
earth,
limited.
Yeah, but before that, when we were made in God's image, because God is immortal, because God is omnipotent, and you can go down those roads. I don't think man was, but immortality, death was not a part of the scenario.
Yeah,
that is how we were originally designed in the image of God.
Yeah, you were. We haven't talked about this on the podcast, but you were privy to my dad's funeral, and part of that. In that, I said, death is a result of sin, right? Yep. We wouldn't be at funerals if it hadn't been for the fall, right?
Right.
I think that's important to note. But how does this... so when you talk about this, just the mortality part and God's image part, we were created to be godlike in a sense that we wouldn't die,
right?
But we would be communing with Him. It points to God's Alpha and Omega-ism, right? Beginning and end. There is no beginning to God. There's no end to God. That
Great
kind of
point.
thing.
Great point.
It points to that.
Yes.
Then it moves into number 5, the human body, through which we experience reality, express ourselves and exercise dominion belong to the image too.
Right, and I think that we talked a little bit about this when we talked about, the idea of compassion.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any defect. I don't think that there was any pain. I don't think that there was, it was hard. It wasn't like farming and, the things that they would have had to do were hard. I think our bodies themselves were made perfectly, and that is no longer the case.
Yeah.
Man, it was. Should I tell the story? Like, my day today began long before I wanted it to, because I couldn't lay in the bed any longer.
Yeah.
I mean, I woke up because I was in pain, and when you get older, and that doesn't make any sense, man. If I'm in the bed, that ought to be like my sanctuary. But
Your safe place.
Right? But I was hurting from laying in the bed and had to get up. That feels very old man.
Yeah.
That feels like the dad who's banging the lawnmower underneath your window when you're in high school, and you're like, what is wrong with him? Like, I'm that guy. I can't lay there anymore because my body's getting old and my arthritis, my bursitis is kicking in.
That's important to note, because number 5, it's if you don't read it, like if you're not looking at the words, what I just read to you went over your head, right? The image belongs to the body. Now, our bodies, though our bodies don't reflect God, what the body can do reflects God, right? In the fact that we get up, we work, we do those kind of things.
Right.
How does that affect what I do with my body? The body in the New Testament is the temple of God.
Yes.
Right? God now dwells in me if my faith is in Christ. If I'm a new believer, born again, right? God then dwells inside my body, though my body will die eventually. It'll wear out, right? Like you were talking about. The image, the soul, right, doesn't. How does it affect what I do with my body then?
It should be all dedicated to Him.
Yeah. What does that mean? Like, how far do you take it?
That's a great question.
What I put in my body?
Yes.
Right? How I take care of my diet, how I take care of exercise. Like, we don't think about those things on a regular basis, right? I don't think I've ever heard a sermon about what you eat, what you do for exercise, things like that. But your body is really important to the image, I believe.
I think simply because it is the mechanism by which your soul functions in this world.
Yeah, J.I. Packer says that.
Yeah. Without it, then there is no ability to glorify God.
Yeah, but listen to this statement though. I don't know.
Well, maybe I don't know that I agree with what I just said.
Well, listen to his statement. There is no fully human life without a functioning body, whether here or hereafter.
I don't know.
Take that.
That's
like,
so deep,
what is he
man.
saying?
I don't know.
I will have a heavenly body. Yes. What does that look like? It's probably not going to look like what I got now.
Right.
It shouldn't, because I'm wearing out. Right.
Yes.
What does the heavenly body look like? We can, hypothesize about that all day long.
Yes.
But it'll be perfect. It won't wear out. Right. I can run without ceasing. I can. No more tears. No more crying. No more pain. All that good stuff.
Yeah.
So there's going to be something that holds my soul, right? The hands of God, you can say that, but there's going to be a body type thing. But then you can talk about the healthiest person on earth, eating and exercising right, and he may die tomorrow, right?
He will die,
right? Out of nowhere. And so, how much stock should we put into?
None. Go eat some barbecue.
I'm saying, like, that's the conundrum we're in
really
as a fallen person. Is like, okay, how much is too much? And if I believe that I cannot outlive the number of days God has for me, there's a set number of days that God has given each one of us. No matter how good I eat, no matter how good I take care of my body, that day's coming, right?
However, if we abuse it,
I'm not saying abandon it, right? Just
if we abuse it, if we're not aware of that, I mean, I don't think any rational person would be like, well, I'm going to take up smoking.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is where I'm going to blow your brain. Ready? I'm not going to blow your brain. This is where your brain is going to explode.
Okay.
Even if I were to say, you know what, I'm going to do this or that, regardless of what happens, God still has that same number of days allotted for me.
Right.
I can't outrun it. Right? I can't move it up. It's still sovereignly ordained.
But I think you could take that argument too far.
People can take it too far and be like,
well, then what difference does it make?
People could say, well, I'm going to jump in front of a bus then.
Yeah.
Is that not still the same number of days
It
God has
is.
allotted you? I mean, that's what's confusing, right? It's hard.
I'm never going to wrap my brain around it.
Yeah, and so people don't take that as what Pastor Ryan is saying. Hey, go and live your life. YOLO.
No.
Risk it for the biscuit.
No.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying your body is important, right?
I think it's important because your body exists for your spirit, and our spirit is made in the image of God.
Think
and
about
the task we have is to bring Him glory.
There it is. Think about RoboCop.
No.
He had a soul, but his body he was a robot.
Yeah.
The body only existed to carry the soul.
Okay.
To do the will of God.
Yes.
That's the same thing you just said. I think that's where we leave it.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
No,
other than I am called to glorify God. That is my purpose. That is why I exist.
Yeah.
That is the only reason I'm here.
I was just stretching your brain.
I know. But if I destroy my body because I do stupid things and I'm laid up in a hospital I'm a vegetable for the rest of my life, I think Packer's saying that's not a life that is glorifying God.
Yeah.
When you could have taken responsibility, when you could have done the things that you should have done to protect the body, which I think is what the new, it's a temple because
your body
it houses
is
your
a
soul.
temple.
Yeah, which is designed to bring glory to God.
Yeah. John Piper said, "Don't waste your life." Right, and several years ago, in a passion conference or something like that, and it was huge. College students were like, took it all over. Like, don't waste your life. Whether you smoke, whether you don't smoke, whether you exercise. Live your life for the glory of God. Do the best you can because your body is a temple, right? Not that you need to worship your body like many people do online, right? We judge ourselves based on what others look like, right? Why doesn't my body look like that, all right? And things like that.
Yeah. That's the confusion that we talked about at the very beginning in the sense of, our bodies made in the image of God, and that's just a confusing where we've gotten it wrong.
Ooh, think about it like this. You ever watched Ninja Turtles?
When I was younger.
Remember the Krag?
No.
The bad guy?
I thought
he's like a little squishy guy.
Raptor.
Well, there is a bad guy called Shredder. Right? But there's another one. Okay. Krang maybe. He's a little blobby guy, but he lives inside a big robot body.
Okay.
If he didn't have that robot body, he couldn't do anything. Live your life as God has given you the life to live, right? For His glory. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to switch topics.
Let's.
Normally we talk about sermon review. You filled in.
I did.
July is typically what I've kind of reserved for membership and, I guess it's just membership focus for our church.
Yeah.
We look at our church covenant.
We have the 4 G's.
The 4 G's.
Yeah.
Which is gather,
give,
grow,
and
give, and go.
Right.
In that order. You talked about growing.
I did.
Second
I was
week.
able to, bring in the idea of, as a member of our local body, but as also much bigger picture, and more importantly, as a member of God's family, we are called, scripturally commanded to grow.
Yeah.
And my takeaway that I hope people heard me say that if they heard nothing else, I use the metaphor of I can recall quickly in my mind what my daughters looked like when they were babies.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful picture for me, and I have that image. However, they're almost 20 years. Both of they're much older. They're in college. They're grown up, and that's the way it should be. It would be super weird if my kids were still those babies. Our spiritual walk should be the same.
Yeah.
When we were born again, we were babies and deserved milk, and that was how it ought to be. But if we are still babies, that's what Hebrews is about. Yeah. That's what Paul says several times. That's not normal. That's not the design. We are called to grow as Christians, and how do we do that? And I walked through some of those tools that we can use as Christians to grow.
I listened to that. One of the things you said that kind of stuck out, I hope imprinted on the hearts of some folks that were there, and folks that are listening online, is that if you've been attending a church 20, 30, 40 years, and you're still stuck on the milk part of it, the for God so loved the world, you're missing out, right? I don't know the exact words you said, but it was similar. You've been here a long time, and you're just
if
happy.
your claim to fame is that the pew has conformed to the way your backside looks.
You didn't say backside, Ryan.
I didn't.
But
my mom, hey, Ryan and I, our moms are our number one listeners, and so Mom texted me after the service, and she was like, "I'm really proud of you, son. Well done. Let's not use the word butt from the pulpit."
Whenever I watched, I was like, "Nice, he said that in the pulpit." But I think it's true. I've read in a book, I believe it was the Jonathan Lehman book we read on a Wednesday night. We walked through on a Wednesday night about church, revitalization, something like that. We were talking about like what does it look like, and I think the same a similar quote was like, if you've been attending a church for 30 plus years and you can't teach a Sunday school class, what have you been doing, right? That kind of thing. And I think we often say, well, membership is more important than anything else.
Yeah.
The church isn't there for us to just exist. The church is there to disciple, to grow, right? To encourage us to grow in the faith, things like that.
Yeah.
To utilize the gifts and the giftedness and things that God has given us. Growth is huge. And we did it on purpose. We gather first, right? We gather to hear the gospel. We gather to worship. We gather to encourage one another. We gather to repent and things like that. But then after those things, those surface level, not surface level, that's quite poor. But after we gather, we begin to grow in our faith, right? If we're not growing, then we're not really there to do, we're not doing the thing we're called to do, right?
Yeah.
In that place. And then after we grow, it moves us to give, right?
Right, which is an outward expression.
Yeah, once I understand who I am, who God is, how he's gifted me, things like that, I begin to give my talents, my time, resources, and even my monetary, things. We're called to tithe or give offering as the Lord would have you give. In the New Testament, Old Testament, God gave really specific outlines for his people to give. In the New Testament, we see Jesus say, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, give to God what's God. We also see in the New Testament, work that out between you and God, right? Once you grow in the knowledge of God has given me so much, I'm going to give back, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Why do we give? I just want to just bring it out there. Why do we give?
I'm sure you're looking for a specific answer. My answer
is... any answer.
Okay. I feel like I'm on the spot. I think that it is because it is a reflection of what God has given us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think most...
I mean, you go to the parable that Jesus taught about the unforgiving, servant who, owed $6 and the guy said, yes, I forgive you. Or that's not even right. He owed let's say $600, and the guy was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll forgive you." And then he goes to his little servant, and he's like, "You owe me 60 cents, and I'm going to put you in jail for it." So it's a misunderstanding of forgiveness of all of those pieces. So when we do understand, we are so broken, we owe so much, and yet we are forgiven. Thus, we need to turn around to the rest of the world and reflect that to the world around us. Similar concept. God has given us everything. Everything we have is His. Yeah. It's not ours to decide. I need to pad my bank account. I need to buy a better car or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But if we're not having the paradigm of this is all God's stuff, I need to use it for Him. I need to give to others in a way that reflects God. Then I think we have a misunderstanding.
Have you ever heard, well, I give so that I can make decisions?
No, but
I give so we can kind of tell the pastor we pay his salary, that kind of thing. Some of those things come up, not in our church, but it's come up in churches, I'm sure, of like, if I give the most, I have the most say.
Yeah.
Or if I give at all, I'm paying that guy's salary, therefore fill in the blank, whatever, right? I think if we look at that, it would become a burden to give, right? Mm-hmm. We see in the New Testament we're to be cheerful givers, right? We're to give back, and like you said, based on what God's given us. I think if we don't grow in our knowledge of the faith, I think we'll be stuck in some of those other understandings of giving.
And if we were to stop after each one of these G's, if our first G is just gathering,
sure, you get together.
You gather, that's great. And even then, if we're like, okay, well, I'm going to be super knowledgeable, I'm going to grow in my knowledge of Scripture, that's a good next step. But if you're not then outwardly expressing that by giving whatever it
Not
may
just
be.
monetary,
Your knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, your time. You're just giving. That's an outward expression of the prior two things.
Yeah.
And that just leads you right into the go, which is the fourth component, which means you've got to be. It's all fine to be in our church and to say, you know, we're in this protective bubble, and man, isn't this nice?
Yeah, I'm a member.
Right, but our world is broken, and we have the life jackets, and you know the Titanic sinking here, and if we don't go period out into the world, which is the model Christ gave us when He did it. Out into the broken world to save, you know, the lost. Not that we're doing it, but that we're giving them the answer to do it. Then we're not fulfilling, I think, what we are as a local church, what we've agreed to do, and our responsibility as a member of Christ's family.
Yeah, the 4 G's, right? It's a membership covenant with one another. We commit together to do this. It's also a discipleship model, right? That's a discipleship model. I gather with believers. I grow in my faith. I give because of my faith, right? And then I go to share my faith. That kind of thing. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, man.
With that, anything else with your sermon that you want to kind of talk about?
No, I have a recording of it. I recorded it. I should give that to you, and we can upload
Facebook.
it.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, it's on the Book of the Face.
It is.
There you go.
All the sermons are there. I would say it's easier to watch after the live version. When you try to watch live, it's too sketchy.
Yeah, we're aware.
But when you watch it like an hour after the service, it's easy to listen to. Things like that.
I know that
it's a thing for me.
It's a thing, and I'm going to talk about it for a second. I don't know where you are, listener. If you're a member of Mount Moriah, or if you're in Missouri, or if you're in Korea, I don't care. I think you need to be invested in a local church, and. Yeah. Now, if you have extenuating circumstances, if you're sick, if you're homebound, I get it. But it is not the same to say I go to church because I watch it on Facebook.
Yeah, that's a good.
So I'm not concerned that our live stream is sketchy. I mean, good. It's afterwards people can watch it and use it as a resource. But to qualify as gathering, it does not. It does not.
There's also now VR gathering where you can gather in a VR church with your Oculus. Yeah, a lot of churches are starting to do that. I think it's dumb. I'm just going to say that out there. As a pastor, it's horrible. It's not church.
Wow.
You're not attending church through a VR set, right? You're just doing a video game and pretending you're playing church, right?
Wow, yeah.
It is, I would say this, when you gather with a church, it is much more muddy than when you watch online. And I say that because at church, we experience repentance. We experience being called out on through a message, through a passage, right? It is much more convicting when I'm there face to face, sitting with my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And I'm online. It's very clinical, and I ain't got to talk to anybody.
I can pause it and go get a cup of coffee.
I can do whatever I want. I'm not going to be convicted. I don't think in the same sense.
Good call.
To share, my struggles, things like that. When we gather, we're sharing our struggles. We're sharing our rejoices, right? It is so encouraging to hear somebody else go through the same thing I'm going through, right?
Yeah.
I think it like you said, if you're not gathering, go gather.
Right.
Find a Bible-believing church that tells you about Jesus, that wants you to move in your faith or grow in your faith and express that by sharing with others, man. Jump in and go all in for it. Get in it.
All right.
YOLO.
No.
Risk it for the biscuit.
Stop. In our 10-minute intro,
yeah,
you teased
AI.
I don't want to talk about AI. We've talked about it on here before. I mean, I don't have any reason to not talk about it. I'm intrigued. You plugged into AI. Tell me the top 5 most current, like what are the big hot button ones right now?
So I just said, what's the biggest conspiracy theories? It starts out with conspiracy theories are often captivate us, right, or imaginations with their intrigue and mystery.
I think they're funny.
Number 1, Area 51 and aliens.
Yes.
What's your take?
We've talked about this.
What's your take? Are there aliens in Area 51?
Yes.
The conspiracy theory revolves around highly secretive military base in Nevada called Area 51, where it is believed by some that the U.S. government conducts experiments on alien technology.
I don't believe that.
And even harbors extraterrestrial beings.
I don't know.
The secrecy surrounding the base has fueled numerous speculative stories and captured public fascination. There's a guy out there, I don't remember his name right now because I'm not big into Area 51 stuff.
Right.
Who has worked there in the past. I guess he's dead now.
Whatever.
And has written books. He's made videos and things saying we do have such and such. And I'm not going to get into it. Here's my take on it. I believe we conduct military technological advances, experiments, tests, things like that in Area 51. I don't believe there's aliens in Area 51. I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
I just haven't seen the evidence of it.
Well, are there aliens?
I believe there are aliens, but not in the sense of green people flying spaceships.
Okay.
I think angels are extraterrestrial
Me
beings,
too.
right?
Me too. Yeah.
And demons are extraterrestrial beings. I do believe those exist, and I do believe those walk among us, and I do
Yes.
believe they influence things. But I don't think they're green monsters flying metal spaceships.
And nor do I think that Area 51 captured one of them and is working on it. When I said yes at the beginning of this,
There's a Nicolas Cage movie.
I was talking about what you were talking about.
Oh, what?
The fact that I think angels are
Oh, yeah. There's a Nicolas Cage.
Your boy.
If you are a Peacock subscriber, there is a whole genre, like when you go to movies and you can type in drama, action. They have a lineup.
Not a sponsor.
They have a lineup of Nicolas Cage movies.
But we're looking for sponsors.
Yeah. Peacock, hit us up. Nicolas Cage made a movie, him and Meg Ryan. Remember this movie?
No.
Back in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, where he is an angel.
Oh.
And he falls in love with Meg Ryan, a human.
Huh.
And once he makes that commitment, he falls from the graces of being an angel, and he becomes human.
And Perseus Jackson was born. What was the name of that movie?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either.
Number 2.
Okay, go.
Moon landing is a hoax. Is the second conspiracy.
There's a movie out right now
Yeah,
that I kind of want to see.
Explain that.
The movie is called shoot. If you remember, constant listener, text it to us. Anyhow, there's a movie that's out in theaters right now. I think it's got Ryan Gosling in it. It's but it is the other side of the moon landing in the sense of it was faked. And it's the film crew, and it's a comedy. So all the people who are trying to put it together and how they are trying to make the way they walk on the moon, how they're trying to recreate all that, or how they think it would look, and how they produced it. I think the premise of the movie is, hey, these guys are going into outer space and they're supposed to walk on the moon, and if they don't make it, we have to make it look like they did. So we have to fool the public.
Yeah, we pumped it up so much.
It's like a just in case kind of a thing, and it's a comedy, like I said.
But it plays into the conspiracy theory, right?
Totally, yeah.
Do you believe we landed on the moon?
I do.
Okay, good. I do too.
Yeah.
I think we did. Now there are a lot of videos out there that say if you land on the moon, how come you can't see the stars? And why is the lighting is so weird? Or why they look like they're flying instead
There's a
of
lot
like
of that.
bouncing?
Just Google that.
Yeah, I believe we landed on the moon. I think we're going back, right? That's the whole thing with NASA. And
that's what, I'm like, NASA, come on. I think we were there, but the whole argument that we lost the technology.
Oh, that's baloney.
That's weird. I'm just like, what? You're not helping your case.
Yeah, I think that was an excuse of we don't want to go back, or there's no reason to go back.
But there's green men living there, and they're going to tell us not to come back.
We're apparently going to build, I guess, a workstation there.
Yeah, of course.
I think Mars is the next big thing. I think we've done some really cool stuff. The rovers and stuff that are there.
Yeah.
You go online and watch all the videos, and it's pretty cool. Now they have sounds from Mars.
Oh, really?
Which is even cooler. So the moon landing. Number 3.
Wait, 3, 4, or 5? I'm on a guess.
Yeah.
I'm only guessing 1. Is Flat Earther on there?
No.
That kind of goes with the people who don't believe that we landed on the moon are probably in the same genre as the people who think the Earth's not a globe.
We'll talk about it. Number 3, 9/11 was an inside job.
No.
Based on, and they base it on how the building fell. Have you heard about Building 7?
I've not heard of any of this.
Yeah, so the 2 towers, right? Building 1 and 2. I think it's Building 1 and 2. But also Building 7 fell, which was nowhere in the vicinity, and that's why they believe it was an inside job.
Huh. No, I've never.
I don't
heard
know
of
why
any
it
of
would be an inside job, unless you're trying to reset some stuff or to even start a war to re-kick the economy. That's kind of a lot of the conspiracy.
this. Wow.
Number 4, the Illuminati.
Oh, well. I'm
Whoa.
a member of the Illuminati.
Yeah.
So it's a real
wait,
thing.
we'll go back to number 3. Do you believe 9/11 was inside? You said no.
No.
Right? Do you think the Illuminati exists?
I think that there are probably secret societies.
Yeah.
I do not think that they are the New World Order conducting the backside of all things that happen globally.
So the way it wrote this one is the conspiracy theory posits that a secretive group of elites
yeah.
known as the Illuminati control world affairs.
Right. I don't believe that.
I think it's more corporate than secret societies.
Right.
If you look at like company, like I just want to just.
You think there's collusion that's going on between these mega companies?
Yeah, I think with yes, there are three. There are three to five major corporations that have stock in one another.
Okay.
Most of these organizations give money to different political parties, different other groups. They control a lot of things that are happening in society. I would say this. BlackRock, you can go look up BlackRock. BlackRock controls just about everything.
Yeah.
But they all have stock in one another, and that's what keeps them going, right? That kind of thing.
Maybe, but do you think that like this is very conspiratorial?
Yeah.
But you do think that there are secret meetings that happen behind the scenes where they're like, we need to make this move so that this thing will ultimately happen. Blah blah blah. Like major people are discussing.
Well,
I don't know.
Here's what I'll say.
No.
As a pastor, right? God is sovereignly in control of all things that happen.
Right.
That's what that's my
Yes.
foundation.
Okay.
I think there are things at play and things at work in society that are behind the scenes. Yes.
Maybe I'm naive about it all, but I just don't. I don't know, man. I'm not trying to pretend to think that there aren't people who are influential and people of power who are having discussions and doing things that are, coordinated. I'm not trying to say that I'm foolish enough to think that doesn't happen. But major global events, let's coordinate the war in Israel, or let's coordinate the uprising in Ukraine. I don't know that I believe that.
With those things, the CIA has done things to set up coups and stuff around the world, right? We've done that. That's plain,
evidential.
Factual kind of things that we've done.
Yeah.
I think corporations, may be different. I think follow the money, and you'll kind of see a lot of things that
Maybe
play out.
I just don't want to believe that.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Right? Once you open that door to
I
conspiracy,
know,
it just opens up a lot of stuff.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Flat Earth. Let's talk about. Let's just make.
Was it 5?
Let's say number 5 is Flat Earth.
It wasn't. What was 5? We won't talk about it. But what was it?
5 had to do with global warming, stuff like that. Just like the Green New Deal and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, got it. Flat Earth's more fun.
Flat Earth. Let's talk about Flat Earth. I don't know much. I don't know much about a lot of the Flat Earth, except for they believe there's this bubble.
Yeah.
Firmament over.
I think there's a couple of different levels of Flat Earth.
There you can get to the edge, but they haven't taught us what the edge is because Antarctica.
Because we're in the Truman Show.
Sure.
I
showed my kids that the other day.
Don't cross the bridge because you're afraid of water.
Yeah, I don't know how I can get down with Flat Earth. I mean, you could, being in the military, I've shot rifles at far distances, right? Typically, a basic trainee shoots up to 300 yards to get through basic training, right? Now, I've shot farther than that, but even at 300 yards, the tilt of the earth is a factor in shooting targets, right?
Right.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
It's physics. It's a real thing. It's science. Not that I put science over God and things like that, but I'm saying, I don't know how you deny the fact that the earth is round when you see pictures of space.
I don't. That's it. So I'm not far enough down the flat Earth.
It's a lot. It seems like it's growing lately. It's gotten bigger.
I see it all over the place. I don't give it a lot of credence, but I think it's funny. But I didn't know. I guess I haven't really thought much about the you can get to the edge part. Why? Where is the edge? Why aren't people falling off? Why isn't that happening?
I don't think the edges are falling off. I think the edge is like a bloop. You're going.
You're back around on the other side.
I think, but I'm not sure how that
works.
works.
It's a glitch in the matrix.
I'm not sure how it works. I'm not a flat earther.
I knew they know.
It's a portal. I think they say that there's a bubble, right? There's a firmament over the earth,
Okay.
Pop the bubble, and truth becomes reality. All that kind of stuff. Who knows?
That's a Matrix.
Yeah, I don't know what flat earthers believe enough about to talk about it.
Yeah.
To talk about it much.
I don't either. I see them every once in a while on some of the threads that I'm just scrolling through, and they're like, if you stand on the tallest mountain and you can see the fish. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's kind of embarrassing.
When does conspiracy turn to truth, though? It's usually after the fact.
Right.
Right.
Right. There has to be enough evidence.
Yeah.
I guess.
Like, will we ever get to the something about the moon, something about flat Earth?
The only way these things
what
are
would make it true?
Well, that's the thing. Like, they're always going to exist as a theory
yeah.
until it's not a theory anymore.
Would you say the Big Bang is a conspiracy theory?
No.
Why? It's a theory.
I mean, yes, right. So, okay, there was a theory that you should bleed people to make them well.
Yeah.
Right? Until it was proven that...
Hey, they're dying.
Yeah, that doesn't work. There was a theory that you didn't need to wash your hands.
But from that, we learned how many pints of blood you can actually lose before you die. We learned that, right? That's medical...
But, I mean, there was a theory... Somebody theorized that there is a little tiny organism that can make you sick.
Yeah.
And people were like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And the guy, invented or discovered the germ. So...
What about the lobotomy theory?
I don't know that theory.
Where they stick a metal thing in your eye?
I know what a
with
lobotomy is.
Yeah. Like, we did experiments on people. We were doing that.
Wonder what would happen.
Yeah, this will make you better. No, it makes you a vegetable. Yeah, sure, you're not scared anymore.
Oh, no, I missed.
It's like, yeah, you're not scared anymore, are you? And they're not responding. They're like, they're just comatose.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we made you better.
Yeah, you're not scared. I don't know. I don't know.
So with conspiracy theories, I'll wrap it up. I mean, I'll do that. I'll wrap this part up with it.
Yeah.
I do not give a lot of stock into conspiracy theories. I think they're interesting and cool to talk about, cool to kind of go down that rabbit hole. But again, think about things that are above, not things that are below. That's what I'll say. That's where we get more bang for our buck. If we stay with the stuff that's just weird and makes us scared and confused, that's the devil, right? We don't want to be in that place. We want to be in the light, right, where truth is. So
I recently took a kind of like a personality leadership thing, and one of my core values is trusting.
Yeah.
I tend to trust people.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed of that. Although I think I can be naive in that. If I just hand trust over to someone who doesn't deserve it, I think that's not necessarily a strength.
Yeah, I'm not a psychiatrist, but what does it mean to deserve your trust?
Well, it's fair. I mean, if you've abused it, if you've betrayed me, if you've, whatever.
Gotcha.
But I err on the side of trusting.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the one, the whole Illuminati kind of thing.
Luma?
Illuminati.
I like it.
I don't want to be the kind of guy who's like, no, I'm just floating through life here. And
ignorance is bliss, man.
I don't know that I hate that theory, because if you're on the other side of not trusting, then these things,
everything that happens is a conspiracy,
and that matters.
Yeah.
And then I'm living this life of fear almost, or anger, or I'm worried about, I'm always doubting what's out there. There's a sense of rationality to that, but it can go too far.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of everything that we listen to, everything we watch, it's all pushing us to do something, right? An action. Buy this,
consumerism.
Buy that, do this, do that, look like this, buy, have all those kind of things. I think that's the society we live in here in the U.S. But again, I think you have to go back to what's lasting, right? What's forever? What's beneficial? And all those kind of things.
You make a great point. And kids these days,
they're stuck in the right now because I'm going to live forever when I'm young,
and
right?
Whatever they see on YouTube is the truth, and because they lack the skill of critical thinking. And by no means am I trying to generalize all kids.
You just went to school.
I really did, but I too am. If I'm too trusting and I don't critically think about my environment or my world, then I'm it's naivete. That's too far. Versus not trusting and I doubt everything and everyone, that's too far. There's a critical thinking skill that differentiates the two. And we have to get better at it. We have to get better at it as Christians, and we have to get better at it as humans, and we have to not just be these leaves on a river that float wherever the winds of change take us, but have to make a stand and say, I understand that I'm made in the image of God, that these people around me are made in the image of God, that there is value, that there is reason, that there is a purpose to what I'm doing, and I'm not just going through the motions every day until I die.
Yeah.
There's a reason to this.
Yeah. Not only did we have the longest intro, this is also the longest podcast.
Wow.
And you wrapped it up really well.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, love God.
Love people. Make disciples.